Welcome back to Takeout. Things are moving pretty quickly on the Epstein front. President Trump responding to the Senate's pretty fast move, agreeing to pass the House bill seeking release of all Epstein files. Trump posted on Truth Social that Republicans should focus on their victories and more or less move on. He did not say in that Truth Social post definitively that he would sign the legislation. That is a looming question. Political panel joins me now, CBS News political contributor and Republican strategist Terry Sullivan, former spokesperson to Vice President Biden, Kendra, Barkoff, Lamy. It's great to have you both with us. Kendra, start us off. Your take on what is a fast-moving Epstein matter after being stalled and held in abeyance for months.
See, I would argue that this has been held in abeyance for years.
Yes, it has. As the intro to the show made patently clear.
Yeah, I would say the fact that we are talking about this as much as we are is great, but the fact that the survivors' voices have gone unheard for as long as they have, and we're still focusing, frankly, on the men and the politics behind this and not as much on their voices, I think should be changed. I think there's been a few press conferences on the Hill where people have heard from survivors, but this has been a long time coming. Epstein was in jail in 2010. He got out, and we are now talking 15 years later that we are finally starting to get to the bottom of it.
That jail term was a sweetheart deal for sure on a state charge.
Correct.
When there was the pendency of a much broader federal indictment just waiting to go put on the shelf. Terry?
Yeah, look, I think we're all on the same page that sex trafficking of anyone, but especially minors, young girls, is horrific. And I agree. I think this is something like it's sad that in order for it to get the media coverage that it's getting now, it has to be a political issue. When this is just a heartbreaking story of someone abusing their power and being a real monster. And so I think that if there is good out of the politics of it, it's bringing it to light.
The reversal of President Trump is rather conspicuous because he was saying this is a hoax. Republicans don't fall for this. You're a fool if you get behind the discharge petition. Then on Sunday, he says it's okay because he knew he was going to lose that vote. Sure. An uncomfortable truth for this president to reconcile himself to.
Yeah, Jack Oliver, who was a big fundraiser for George W. Bush back in the days, used to have a famous saying that he said, figure out what's going to happen and be for it. And that's what the president did here, is he figured out what was going to happen and he's for it. Look, I think this is, there's been no smoking gun or any evidence that he's done anything wrong. But I do think that they've mishandled this issue.
And it confused a lot of people close to the president. Why the hesitation on this? Why?
It's confused me. And look, and on the front end, this was much more of a Republican-leaning issue that Republicans cared more about is, let's get to the bottom of this. What happened? Where's the list and all this stuff? So for him to kind of pump the brakes and move away was a bit startling and surprising. I think the whole thing, he just wanted to move past it and wants to focus on other issues.
Kendra, do you think if the president signs this legislation that the files will be released from Justice and Treasury? Because Treasury's got stuff on Epstein as well.
I think there are so many more files than people even recognize about where they are scattered everywhere. And I would just say to the Trump administration and how badly they bungled this, they brought influencers in very early on in this administration.
Oh, to get the binders.
To get the binders. And that is making a mockery.
And the binders had very little in it.
The binders had nothing in there that was remotely new. They made a mockery of the entire Epstein process, and they have bungled this from the start. Not surprising.
Do you? Go ahead, Terry.
I was just going to say, but the interesting thing is there's two things here. There's a real case and real crimes and real tragedy. And then there's political conspiracy. And often the focus is on the political conspiracy side of things. And the thing about conspiracies is they never end. You can't prove a negative on a conspiracy because everything could be released and people will still believe, well, what do they hold back? Where's the secret? Where's the conspiracy here? So I do think that those two things, there's a fine line between them that are crossing back and forth.
Kendra?
Yes. But I would just say, but again, to your point, Republicans were really good on this issue, and they had an opportunity to squash this from the start and to come in and to make right and to do right by these women. And they didn't. And they have drawn this out for an enormously long period of time. Mm-hmm. They have tortured women.
Well, I don't know that Republicans have tortured women. That seems like it.
I'm saying they've tortured them by drawing out the process of releasing these files.
But very quickly, I don't know that Joe Biden or any of the Democrats, when they were in control of Congress, did anything about it until now. So, I mean, it's not
That's the
this is
last
not a partisan
word.
issue.
Terry Sullivan, Kendra Barkoff, Lamy, thank you.